Senior attorney with Disability Rights California, and she's a founding member of the San Diego Housing Emergency Alliance.
All right, Ann.
I always have to adjust this because I'm so little. So, thank you everyone for coming here. We are building a movement, and I'm very, very excited to see everybody here. It's really great. Can't do it without you guys. We are facing a housing and homelessness crisis of momentous proportions, not seen since the 1930s. When people are displaced and rendered homeless from natural disasters like fires or floods or hurricanes or earthquakes, there's tons of compassion, and the whole community comes together, pitches in to help. No one blames the victim. Not so with this man-made disaster. A disaster characterized by skyrocketing rents, a shriveled social safety net, stagnant wages, and growing homelessness. Virtually everyone blames the victim. The common wisdom and what we hear from the mouths of most of the politicians out there is that those who end up couch surfing, living in vehicles, or pitching a tent on Fifth Avenue, they are the ones to blame. They're to blame for making poor choices, for being too lazy to get a job, and thus they deserve their fate. At best, people experiencing homelessness are seen as so intoxicated or mentally impaired that they don't know how to budget their money. And they irrationally turn down the ample help available out there for them if only they were willing to accept it. So our city does a little bit of outreach, sets up a few shelters with conditions that we wouldn't want for our pets. And for those who persist in being in our faces, we, or at least the city's police, the city powers that be, deal with them with the harshness we think they deserve. We arrest them, we fine them, we seize their vehicles, we dump their belongings, and we chase them out of town. Shame. This is shameful.
Yeah.
But the common wisdom is dead wrong. For those of you who have never been homeless or have never struggled to pay your rent or your mortgage, I will lay out a few facts. Those of you with personal experience at the center of the housing storm, please bear with me, as you already know all this stuff, right? The majority of people experiencing homelessness in San Diego are people with disabilities. Disabilities that interfere with their ability to work or to work full-time. And some have had careers and jobs before they became disabled. The reason this population is desperately poor, when that wasn't the case a few decades ago, is because of the growing gap between the shrinking power of an SSI check, now around $900 a month, and the cost of housing, up 32% just in the last few years. Back in 2014, sounds like a long time ago, but it wasn't, the median cost of an efficiency apartment in San Diego was 110% of the size of an SSI check. In other words, it was more than your check. And it's even worse now. No matter how good you are in balancing your budget, if you've passed your second grade arithmetic, the math just does not work.
Right.
In the last few years, we have lost more affordable housing than we have gained. For example, many SRO hotels, single-room occupancy hotels, were converted to hotels for tourists. And we now have a shortage of 135,000 affordable units in San Diego. Meanwhile, if you look around you in downtown San Diego, there's tons of construction going on, isn't there? Tons of it. $1 million condos that are being built, many of which stand half empty while the population on the streets continues to grow. At the same time, there is a 10 to 12-year wait for Section 8 benefits, with 60,000 people on the waiting list. So even if you're lucky enough to get a voucher, In San Diego, landlords are free to reject it if they want, and many people still end up on the streets with a voucher. But let me tell you something. People with disabilities and seniors on fixed incomes are merely the canaries in the mine. You know that saying, the canaries in the mine? We're all next. Not only can anyone become disabled through accident, illness, or injury, or if you live long enough, you're likely to become disabled, but many people who are working are living a hand-to-mouth existence with little or no savings, and they will soon, if we don't stop this unjust, absurd policies, they will find themselves drowning in the tsunami of homelessness. Virtually everyone is at risk. And I'll tell you something, losing one's housing can create disabilities even if they didn't exist previously. Homelessness can in fact kill you. Last year, 117 people died in the streets of the city of San Diego. And forget about recovering from mental health disabilities or physical illnesses while you're unhoused. Without a roof over your head, things only get worse. Now this is all about the cost of rent. A recent study that was conducted by a company called Zillow showed a direct relationship between rent increases and homelessness. And I'll give you a couple of examples. In the city of San Diego, with an average rent for a 2-bedroom of $16-18 a month, absurd amount, approximately 1 in 200 people are homeless. That's 5,600 people in the city alone, a 10% increase since last year. In San Francisco, with median rents, now this is shocking, median rents of $4,500 a month, the homeless population is now 1 in 100, which is double the rate of San Diego. Now, I used to live in San Francisco, and I think I just got out in the nick of time. So how did we get in this mess? Real estate speculators, limited only by the depth of their greed, have run roughshod over the market, turning housing into a virtual casino. And in a casino, as you know, anyone who's ever gambled, the odds are stacked against you, and the vast majority of people lose out. We need public investment in affordable housing, and we need it now. We need real effective rent control in this city, and we need it now. We need protection for voucher holders, and we need it now. And we need the criminalization of people experiencing homelessness to end now. And we need to build a grassroots movement to demand that housing be respected as a basic human right. A movement that holds our politicians accountable, keeps them honest, and makes them serve the people instead of the very wealthy. The San Diego Housing Emergency Alliance, HEMA, which rhymes with FEMA, by the way, that's purposeful, is dedicated to building such a movement, and I hope everyone here will join us. Please listen to the stories of our brothers and sisters that you are about to hear, stories of people facing homelessness or struggling to pay their rent, and please, please join us in the struggle.
I'll show you how we do this thing down in New Orleans. If you ever been down on Bourbon Street, get a little taste of it here. It plays so beautiful, don't you agree? Here we go, y'all. Check it out. Mother, there's too many of you crying.
that was your points on what homeless people are facing or being close to homelessness and seeing that coming is something I never thought I would experience, but it all was so familiar with everything that you said. In 2015, I was living in a 3-bedroom duplex, 1,500 square feet. I'm an attorney, I had a great job. And my son became ill. He had a psychotic break, and he was 6 years old, ended up being admitted to Rady's Children's Hospital, and I had to quit my job and care for him. He was seriously ill, and he's had to have a lot of medical treatment. But being that I was the main breadwinner, we knew that we were going to have to downsize. And so we had to leave that house, and we went to a 1-bedroom apartment to be able to afford it. And then my boyfriend the father of my 8-year-old, got laid off from his job. And we ended up relying on unemployment. And we were about $300 short of making rent. And we went to the county, we went everywhere, and we explained we're about to get kicked out because of $300. And nobody helped, so we ended up staying in hotels. And since then, we've been doubling up with people, which has created really, really serious problems. The last place that we stayed was with a friend of a friend, and she had a 3-bedroom condo her parents were paying for. So we move in there. My 16-year-old goes to her father's house, so I basically essentially lose custody without a custody battle, but my daughter didn't have a place to stay either except for her father, so I lost her staying with me full time. And we were in an apartment, or 1-bedroom of this apartment, and she decided to get together with this guy that had just gotten out of jail, and he was on parole. But, I mean, he had been institutionalized since he was 12 years old, and he was 25, and I didn't think anything of that, really, until he became very violent. And he didn't hit us or anything, but he started threatening our lives, and ended up killing my 18-year-old cat. And so we left, and we had nowhere to go. And we got a hotel for a couple nights, and then my boyfriend finally got employed again, and then we got help from Martha, helped us quite a bit, and without that, we can't sleep in a Toyota, you know. I've been hospitalized throughout this endeavor that I've been through about once a month in the ER, where I maintained better health before. I didn't have a place to live. I've lost all my belongings in storage, everything, baby books, everything. My bar license, all my, everything that means anything to me, pictures, it's all gone. This is my only outfit. And now, as we have some assistance with someone who is willing to pay for first month's rent and deposit, as long as we get a lease, we thought, okay, great, my boyfriend has a job now, we can get out of this hole. But when we look at apartments, we can't afford a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, we can afford like a studio or a 1-bedroom. And they ask, are you a family? And then they just say, too many people, you know, and then I have to get, you know, a huger place that we can't even afford. So that's where we are now. And I mean, I don't even tell people that I'm homeless. I mean, I'm here talking to you, but I haven't talked to my dad to even tell him, because it is a shame attached to it, and I don't feel like I should be ashamed, but it's depressing. It's really depressing, and something has to be done. It's once you're there, it's almost impossible to get out of it. That's the problem. And we work and we try to take care of our children, and it's just the shame of it, like in society, is horrible. So, yeah, something really needs to be done. And it's great to see that there are a lot of people who care.
My name is Dee Davis, and I'm a former vice president of the Chicago chapter of SCLC, and I moved here about 30 years ago. I'm currently an independent community advocate for the homeless, and I'm also part of HOME, which is Housing Opportunity Meant for Everyone. I'm going to speak to you today mainly about the homeless situation, and I understand I have 3 minutes. One of the things that I've been doing since I've gotten a little bit older, instead of putting on my marching shoes, I've been using the telephone. So I've been speaking with Councilman Ward's office quite frequently. And within the year that I made some headway, I found out from Tyler, which is the assistant of Councilman Ward. They are looking seriously at the stadium as a site. They are thinking of possibly 2 areas in that area of the stadium. There is approximately 160 acres in that area. There is enough parking for something like, I believe, 100 cars. No, I take it back, 100,000 cars. And they have 44 restrooms for men and 50 for women, or vice versa, and 4 for undetermined gender, okay? I wanted to say about that, I had spoken with them and I had talked to them about dividing whatever site they do decide to use among 4 types of homeless people, okay? I am one that was 1 paycheck away, so I want you to know that. One area I was thinking of was for vets. We have about 15% of our homeless people that are veterans. Okay, they fought for the country, they served for the country, but they're not being treated fair. The other amount that I wanted to have were for families, and then the other for single women. Now, some of the issues that we are facing is, one is that there are cards that the homeless is using, and it's really causing a problem for them because they don't know where to put their things. So I'm asking for storage, period, for homeless people. I'm asking for transportation for homeless people, the ones that can take their things in storage but don't have anyone to take them. The city could do that. They have transportation, okay? That's an issue I'm dealing with. The other thing I'm dealing with is the sweep. And I'm talking fast because I know I don't have much time. The sweep is when the police is able to come in at any time and get a mass number of people out. I'm asking for this, if it has to be done at an hour from 8 in the morning to 8 p.m., okay? 2 reasons for that. That is causing a lot of stress for the homeless. It's also producing stress in the neighborhood. So just common sense and a safety factor there. I'm also speaking on, do you want me to stop?
Yeah.
If you want me to stop,
Keep going.
Wrap up.
okay. The other issue that I am talking to the council people about is the violence in the homeless community. No one is truthfully addressing that. And I'm not talking about police violence, so don't get it twisted. I'm talking about violence from the outside and violence from the inside. I'm talking about elderly being attacked and abused. I'm talking about women being raped. I'm talking about people being killed. I'm talking about robbery. Those are the kind of things that you will hear that I'm talking about within the community. I make my rounds. I usually take my car, park it, and just travel and speak to different people. But these are some of the issues we need to deal with and that are serious, and that's going on in the community. And there are some others, but I'm wrapping up. So you will see
across from the police station. And that's Sundays at 5, loosely. If you just hang out there, like we might be running late. And then also Thursdays from 5 to 6, it's 16th and Island.
Yeah, it's a
And
big
so
spot.
Without Bombs is not even an organization. It's just a bunch of people who collect who collectivized to volunteer and collect food and then come the next day and prep food and cook food and feed people. So we think of it more as solidarity rather than charity, and we love to feed people and serve, and if you're ever interested in coming and getting food, or if you want to come and learn how to volunteer, just talk to any one of the people who may be serving that day, and they can line you up. And thank you so much.
I don't know how common my story is, but I was a professional. I was in IT. I was a systems engineer until my illness got to the point where I could no longer perform my job. And I was summarily let go one day, a couple of days before Christmas. I had done all the things I should have done. I had a 401k, which I burned through. I went on unemployment, which I burned through. And I burned through my severance package. I was on what's called COBRA for medical, which cost me about close to $600 a month just for my medical insurance. And that's kind of hard to do when you're having to try to pay rent on a house. And they both ran out at one point. I spent a year almost couch surfing, going from friends, family, until I ran out of them and ended up on the street, sleeping next to the trolley one day without even a tent, just a jacket. I've lost everything. All of my paperwork, same story, storage unit lost. My entire life was lost. Everything I owned is gone. I have a couple of changes of clothes now. It's been a struggle. Just getting medical care here is difficult. When it costs you $5 a day just for a trolley to get to your doctor appointment. This is not tenable. I've been in shelters. I finally, after 2 months of going downtown and standing in line at 8 o'clock every morning, I finally got into one place where I became sick and went into the hospital for 2 months, and when I got out, I no longer had a bed, and I went back out on the street. And it told me to keep coming back in again and checking in at 8 o'clock in the morning. I've been in the hospital twice now, and I've almost lost a leg due to sepsis, which is I'm hearing pretty common when you're living out on the street in those kind of conditions. It's been quite the struggle. I never thought that I would end up here. I thought I'd done everything correctly and that there would be a safety net if I ever did get ill. It didn't happen. It's hard enough for someone to get work in my line of field if they're over 40.
Yeah.
I'm on the edge of 60 now.
Yeah.
I will probably never work in that field again.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough for me to type. My hands are shaky. I have seizures now. I'm probably never going to work again, and there is no housing available for me. I may not get into the place that I want, the SRO that I'm trying to get into now. I may not be disabled enough for them. There is not enough affordable housing out there for anybody that is from low to medium income. It takes 3 incomes to afford a 1-bedroom house. And they won't let that many people stay in a 1-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom house. There is no way to catch up. I can't dig my way out of this. As much as I'd love to be able to do it on my own, I am going to need help, and the help is not available. And something's going to be done about this. There's no reason why this city should have the problems it has. It's an embarrassment. There's no reason why other cities and other states are able to take care of this in a reasonable manner, and we can't. Except that the driving principle here is money and not people.
A message that we need to keep in mind, you know, that really everybody is struggling with something. And that's why they're either living on the streets or they're on the verge of living on the streets. So that's a very important message. And the Voices of Our City Choir was co-founded a little over a year ago now by Jeff Johnson and Nina Deering, who's following up. They started, you know, very small, and they built this community choir up, you know, over the last several months, you know, to a group that numbers in the 2 to 3 dozen, depending on the event. It's been a remarkable experience to watch them grow and to work with them to help bring, you know, a face to the homelessness crisis and the housing crisis here in San Diego, and to work with them in partnership to give whatever aid and assistance we can give to people. So they're squeezing up here on stage.
Thank you all so much for coming. The revolution is in all of you, and it takes us getting together like this. Thank you.
Hey everybody, again, we are the Voices of Our City, which is a choir comprised of sheltered and unsheltered San Diegans getting together to show people how to be human with each other. And we do it all the time, choir practice. By the way, you are invited. This is the Voices of Our City, so if you call this your city, you are in our choir. Everyone can sing, and so we invite you to come on Fridays at 11 a.m. We meet at 2220 Broadway at Tay Academy, and we'd love to see you there.
Right. How about a little Stevie Wonder? Let's do it.
Your friendly announcer. Hey. I have serious news. Tell everybody what I'm about to say. But in this world's disaster, could change the joy and laughter onto tears. That love's in me.
as a disabled American citizen, he has faced harassment and abuse from the city because he is unable to afford rent. He had an RV until he was forced to sell it to avoid having it impounded for unpaid tickets. He now only has a truck for shelter. And David's here with his life companion, really Chaos, his service dog.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And I'd like to thank everyone for having us here, and thank you to Ann for believing in me. I searched long and hard to find someone like Ann because up until then I was basically on myself, and I'm going to start my timer because I've only got 5 minutes. Now, what I just wanted to basically say is, for me, this is about a perspective because I started in February of 1976 out in the street before my 7th birthday. So I've done the 70s, basically 80s. I got indoors after group homes and stuff, and this is just, I've got very limited time, so just to bring you up to speed. I was in a horrific car accident at the end of 1990, and I basically lost the ability to walk, and it took me forever to get myself back to do that and get myself back on my feet. There's never been any issue of smoking, drinking, drugs, because when we're homeless, it doesn't matter our story, we're all drug addicts. That's just how they're going to look at us, to identify us, because they have to have an excuse to chase us. They have to, it's a business. If they start to help one of us, it's like paying a credit card where you're expected to pay all of the debt. So that's why the way these cities and stuff work is basically they use us, they try to get you in the street because you're a business. They can do 4 to 5 tickets and legally take your vehicle. They can skip the laws. They funnel you. If you're in San Diego, every ticket goes to Claremont Mesa Court. I've had, since 2000, 800, maybe 870 something tickets. I'm kind of a confrontational person because I'm disabled, and when I'm in a handicap spot or I'm sleeping, I won't respect authority when they come for me because you have to have probable cause. Now, I ended up in the street permanently, God, I can't even remember, but as of 99, I haven't been indoors at all. I was about 515 pounds in a wheelchair when I finally ended up in the street living in the bathroom at the beach. They would cart me off illegally and say I'm a danger to myself, take me to Vincent de Paul. They try to get your ID, they try to get your information to use against you. They absolutely have no programs. They will have you spinning your wheels, driving, burning your fuel, or busing you everywhere to fill out forms. There'll always be forms, you'll always feel like there's hope. But at the end of the road, there really is no programs. It's just to keep you moving, keep the process going. She was born in 2003, and I've lost about 240 pounds, got back on my feet because of my dog. I've done this with no doctors, basically with nothing. And my thing is basically, I've traveled now up and down. I've done homelessness in the 90s, the 80s, even in Skid Row, if anyone's familiar with downtown LA. Yeah. I've been on the row, as it's referred to. I've actually witnessed people dying in front of me. I've actually held people and waited for ambulances. I try to identify, I actually invited people here today that experienced some of this families. I try to identify people as I'm out and about, and I try to help them kind of fill in the blanks, especially if you have a vehicle, because they will try to take it. I've lost 13 vehicles. I haven't been in the position of these people. I've lost 2 or 3 storages, but I was smart to spread stuff around everywhere because I had more experience than the next guy, so I know how they will try to take everything, your clothes, they will try. I've lost a trailer that was the last thing my grandma gave me. It had all my medical papers, so it took 17 years to go to court and get my disability. But then you find out if you go indoors, if they do offer you a place, as Ann said, about $900 a month, what they don't tell you is if you go indoors, you lose that $180. Because basically you're getting $180 food allowance. I don't qualify for EBT no more. They pay you cash to eat out every day. So it's kind of a joke because if you go indoors, you're now going to have to try to live off of $800 a month, which, good luck. So they don't want you to have a vehicle. They have all the lots. They have all the parking in San Diego because it was designed for RVs and stuff. They choose to lock them not for safety but for profit. And they're running everything for profit. I've been maced, my dog's been maced, I've been tasered, I've been put in the hospital. I've been beaten by the cops, I've been threatened, and because there's no criminal record, they don't know what to do. I didn't really have time to basically go into detail. I just kind of give a perspective, a different way of telling you people, you know, basically unless, as this revolution and there's more of us out there, the only way that's going to stop is because the city is guilty of arbitrary and willful misconduct by a public entity. They're responsible for all their citizens, not just the ones that can afford the housing. They're elected officials. When you get into public service, you're supposed to take care of all, not some. And that's it. That's all I had time for. I hope I've given a little bit of information, and thank you guys again.
My name is Colleen Cusack. I've been a criminal defense attorney for 25 years, and I started running a clinic a few years ago teaching law students how to represent criminals in court by practicing on people in infraction court. When I started that, I was in court and I was observing how the court was treating individuals who had no money, and I've just been disgusted. And the clinic has since ended because of lack of funding, but I'm continuing to fight for homeless people who are ticketed and end up in Claremont Mesa Court. So if you are one or you know of one, I have cards with me today. I'll be happy to share. I can't do parking tickets, and if you get a misdemeanor, you'll get the public defender. But if you're sent out to Claremont Mesa for encroachment, for habitating in your vehicle, what is that even? If you're living and you're in a vehicle, you're guilty of a crime. And for taking cans out of a city trash can, any number of ways they target a population that already has inadequate resources and can't handle it. I'll share one quick story. It was in the Voice of San Diego last week, in which represented an individual charged with habitating in his vehicle. We went to trial, and the officer lied. 25 years, I'm used to that. But then what happened? We challenged the law as to its unconstitutionality in appellate court, and the city attorneys, to avoid having to address whether or not the law is unconstitutional, got the body camera evidence. The body camera evidence showed my client was telling the truth, and the police officer perjured himself several times. If you search on Google for homeless man and false testimony in Voice of San Diego, you'll find the body camera evidence. You can watch yourself juxtaposed with the transcript of the officer's testimony. So this is getting some attention now from City Council because of the evidence that we have. So, good luck.
Just wanted to say thank you to the people that made this possible. HEMA, the San Diego Housing Emergency Alliance. Thank you to Martha for emceeing. We do have some petitions in the back if you all would like to sign for rent control and to stop the ticketing for those who are homeless in their RVs. So about me, well, since I only had 5 minutes, I know I couldn't really say everything, but I moved to California 10 years ago. This month, just a few days ago, was the 10th anniversary, and looking back, I have to say that it's definitely bittersweet. I have met a lot of people who have helped me along the way to develop and to help me through, you know, a lot of what I was going through being homeless. I still am currently homeless, but I am also an organizer, and that has been very hard to, you know, to do when you're homeless. You don't have a lot of the things to take care of yourself, but then you're out there in the community helping other people. So sometimes that's definitely something that makes me want to just go and isolate myself. But every day I have people who encourage me and support me, and I'm very grateful that. It has been hard finding community here. I actually didn't start finding it until about a year ago, so the first 9 years I was around a lot of people, but they were not the right crowd. And it was just very difficult finding people who really understood me as someone who is a person of color and also queer. And it's been a long journey. Right now I am not at City College, but I will be attending soon again for the semester. I am going for my associate's degree in peace studies, and that is aimed toward talking about conflict resolution and nonviolence, which in this world right now is hard to do and be nonviolent when there's so many things going on to be angry about and to protest about, which I have also been a part of. Just coming up here and putting the words together, just sitting down and thinking out all the times I've moved, all of the numbers I've called to get therapy or to get shelter. It was just really hard to write out. People tell you to call 211, and that's like the basic common answer, and it definitely does not fulfill the needs the way that it should. The resources are drying out in San Diego drastically, and it's been like that for a while. I was around a lot of foster youth who also knew that, and just the people I've been around being homeless, there's this stigma that they did something to get there, and they didn't. No one deserves to be without a home. And if you weren't mentally ill when you became homeless, you become mentally ill when you're homeless just because of everything you have to go through. It's hard to take a bath. It's hard to use the bathroom somewhere. You do get stopped by the cops a lot. So is this profiling. I have seen people at 5 in the morning be woken up out of their tents, dragged out, and they're ticketed or told to leave areas. It's very disruptive on your psyche, and I think that people should be made aware of that. We made this event so that we could try to give a face to homelessness and humanize it, because there's this association, and people don't really talk about this topic. But there's about 10,000 people homeless in San Diego. And I witnessed, 3 of them die, 2 unborn infants, and 1 elderly woman just recently, who I was trying to help with the organization I'm a part of. And, it's a lot of pain out there. And I just want to encourage people to go out there to city council meetings, even though a lot of them may not listen, just to your presence may also mean, just that much more, to give your opinion, to go up there when there's open mic, and, even like today, for open mic, if you would like to speak, because we have to bring visibility to this issue. Rent is going up everywhere in San Diego, in California. This is a really expensive place to live. And if you don't already have some kind of a foundation, or you inherited any kind of money or anything like that, it's just really hard starting from the bottom up. When I came out here, I had no family, and I went to Job Corps. After that, I moved. I have a timeline, but I moved 21 times within the past 10 years, and so that's an average of staying somewhere maybe on average like half a year and then having to move again. So it's been definitely a wear and tear on my psyche, but I'm doing what I can to get uplifting from people who I know.
All the people that have shared their stories, they're very touching and they're very powerful, and I think a lot of it makes us sad, a lot of it makes us angry in some ways. To me, I try to rationalize anger and try to see direct causes and try to analyze why we get from point A to point B. And as Anne had said earlier, there's a Zillow report that links the increase in rent prices to homelessness. And one of the things that San Diego Tenants United fights against is displacement. And when we talk about displacement, we're talking about, you know, losing out on being able to live in one's community, long-standing community, oftentimes, or, you know, even if it's a short-term place, being displaced into the streets or being displaced out of the city, out of the state. So a lot of these devastating stories we happen to encounter as organizers, and it's really heartbreaking seeing that there's no action from our political class or from the elites in trying to remedy this. In fact, it almost seems like they're intentionally keeping this type of awful livelihood in place because they want to point and say, you know, if you don't work, you're going to end up in the streets, and you're going to end up with, you know, nobody with, you know, supporting you. You're going to end up in a destitute situation. And this is part of, you know, a long-standing history of oppression, a long-standing history of, you know, classism and class warfare. So when we're talking about, you know, the threats of being kicked out into the streets as working people, we understand that, you know, the rents are going higher because there's people making more profits. And they're making more profits at 8%, 10%, 15%. We've seen stories where they've raised rents from $1,500 to $2,100 1 month after the other, and with no explanation. People living in substandard conditions, people living in, you know, deplorable conditions that they themselves know they would never live under. We've seen situations where management has ignored the pleas of tenants. You know, something as simple as a screen, replacing a window screen, will be left undone for years until there's a hospital emergency of a little kid being bit by a spider, right? We've seen situations where there's a car slammed into the wall, and they left the open wall for 2-3 weeks without doing anything until we called and we told them we were going to do something about it and expose them for being shitty management and shitty people. So one of the things that we've been encountering is, you know, the types of behaviors that we see with people that don't care about people in the streets, or that they don't care about their tenants, is we see a type of fascism. We see a type of society that is neglecting the most oppressed people, the most destitute people, the people that can't fend for themselves. They're being further and further pushed down into the, you know, the gutters and trying to be pushed out of the view of people, you know? And we see this all the time. We see this with people getting kicked out of their houses with, you know, by only missing $200 in fees, or something ridiculous like, you know, having to clear the streets for the damn Padres, you know? So when we're talking about, you know, the psychology of, you know, the people that are creating the conditions, you know, because we're the people that are experiencing these conditions. You know, we're the people that are reacting to the conditions that are being pressed upon us. So when we see these conditions being generated just for perpetual profits, we need to look at it and say, well, when is this going to stop? You know, are we going to wait until 10,000 people are out on the streets, which might already be the case? Or what are we going to do, right? So as organized tenants, or an organized union with San Diego Tenants United, what we're trying to do is organize, rally, stand up, and fight back. And with everybody that's here, I would highly encourage that you find a way to connect with your neighbors, you find a way to connect with each other in a way that is going to get us through these terrible years of fascism that we're going to be facing. And one of the ways in which we do this is by collectively uniting, standing up, rallying, marching, confronting the oppressive forces that are facing us, and telling them we're going to defeat them. Why? Because we're a larger force. We're the people. They're the elite. They're the bourgeoisie. They only got 2 to 5% people on their side. We got 95 to 99% people on our side. So as soon as we wake up and we say, hey, enough is enough, you guys are done with, you know, putting us out on the streets just so that you can make more money, then that's when we're actually gonna make a rightful revolution, a revolution that is gonna change the economy, that's gonna change social classes, that's gonna change the way we look at each other and we treat each other. Instead of seeing each other as the other, as the enemy, we start seeing each other as the love and the friend and the neighbor that we truly are. And so what I'm trying to just say here is unite, stand up, fight back, and don't stop, because the fascists won't stop. And we need to win, and we will be victorious.
Next up, We have Suzanne Morse, who is a domestic violence survivor, formerly homeless, and founder of Heartfelt Voices United, a theater and film production company that brings awareness to violence against women.
Allowing them to use my full name because I want to empower myself by not allowing the shame to drag me down. It was New Year's of 2003 that everything changed for me. I'd been living in the suburbs of Las Vegas in a 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house. I drove a newer Camry. I was an insurance agent. But that night, I had no choice but to leave all of that behind. The reason? I had a dark secret. My marriage was abusive. It had begun with just emotional abuse, but was escalating. Never-ending fights, being forced to stay up all night and go to work exhausted, and the physical violence was beginning. But it was when I was threatened that I knew I had to leave. I thought I could handle it myself, but now it had escalated and I was no longer in control. It was leave or die. So when he was gone, I grabbed a few clothes, my important papers, a few sentimental items, and I left. I really didn't have anywhere to go. I knew a friend who lived in a burned-out house not too far away from where I lived, so I drove there. We stayed there for a while. It was just a frame of a house with no real roof. You could see the stars and sky. There was also another couple living in an RV on the property, and they would let us use the shower in the RV. They'd gotten permission from the owner to stay there while they contemplated what to do with the property. We stayed there until the city badgered the owner, threatening him that they would fine him heftily for having people reside on abandoned property. So the owner kicked us all out. That was how my struggle began. Since then, I've been forced to stay with friends or family. Only a year later, my partner and I were rear-ended by a large Ford truck and sustained serious injuries, and I couldn't work for months. I remember healing from that lying on someone's living room floor and riding my bike to appointments. I lost my house, my car, and many of my belongings. When my ex-husband and I sold the house, I ran up costs to handle the divorce, expecting some equity from the house to pay it all off. But when I received the final mortgage check, because my ex had lived in the house without paying mortgage, I received only 99 cents for my house. And I literally was buried financially. I've been trying to come up for air since. I've struggled with depression and hopelessness, wondering if I could ever live again. And that depression sapped my energy, making it much harder to work, to complete plans, and work on becoming stable again. It's hard to focus on priorities when you're depressed, recovering from trauma, and dealing with physical pain every day. If it weren't for 2 women who were running the local DV shelter in Las Vegas, who reached out to me in compassion, I don't know if I'd be speaking to you here today. They are the reasons I am a survivor today and able to advocate and use my voice. I came to San Diego not because of the weather, but because I had to leave the city, which was my home, to put distance between me and my abusive ex who was looking for me. My family was here and I had originally grown up here. I lost my support system and had to start from scratch finding a support network out here. I've lived with family or had my family support me to make ends meet out here. It's been difficult. Recently, my brother threw me out of his apartment over his sink being clogged up. He can't understand what it is to struggle against depression and complete tasks. He thought I was lazy. Such has been my life since leaving the abuse. I'm now healing. I have found my voice, writing poetry and stage plays that speak of my experience with violence and to bring awareness to violence against women. And I'm an advocate. I'm finding strategies to cope, but it's still a struggle to settle down here because the rents are so high. And having a security deposit, too, makes it very difficult to stabilize. I know what a struggle it is for those who can't find housing and have fled to the streets. I want to end with this. The next time you see a woman on the street pushing her cart or sleeping on the sidewalk or in a tent, don't assume that she wants to be there. More than likely, she's there because she has no choice. Much like me, it's living on the street or death. Remember this. 85% of women living on the streets are fleeing domestic abuse. Please be compassionate.
Come forth and sing to me. Raise me up. my reflection has. I see the dark shades of what I used to be. The purple of her eyes, I see the scarlet of my life. I said, Lord, rescue me. Now I've conquered my past. The future's here at last. I stand at the entrance to a new world. I can see all the ruins to the right of me will soon have lost sight of me. I said, Lord, rescue me.
Really helps to drive home, the crisis that we're in, and how we need more than just lip service and, small little band-aids. We need to really rethink the way that this city cares for its residents.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Roberts. Thank you. My name is Denise Roberts. I'm not a speaker, but I'm here with compassion. And I'm talking on behalf of someone who I felt passionately caring for. There's this elderly lady. I live downtown, by the way, and so I get a chance to see the homelessness and the situations that they're going through. But I'm quite sure there's to deal with the situation, it's going to take the whole community as well as the state to really get involved to address each individual situation. But in this case, I guess when I had to really see it myself at hand, it's really have taken me to a point where I want to get involved. I feel like, this is the only way to see things to change, to come about, to really get involved with what's going on. So there's this one lady, I'm here today because I am trying to reach out to at least try to get some help for her. She's an elderly lady in a wheelchair sleeping out on the street. And I felt, I don't see how that's possible where we could go to war and have money for that and be able to do all the things, but we don't have time to look at the things that really affect our community as a whole. And so I felt like the first thing I could do is start to get involved with those who are involved in the community and trying to help as a whole to find other solutions, especially for the homeless and the elderly, because they are at a point of vulnerability. They don't have the resources to communicate on their needs and their wants, so there needs to be someone out there to help advocate for them. And I decided I want to take a point to start doing that. And eventually, I don't know where God had me at that point, but I definitely see a need. So if anybody out there knows some housing or where I could connect with someone regarding trying to get housing for this lady, she's a very sweet woman. She has a slight mental issue, but that shouldn't be no reason why she should be out on the street at this time. So I thank everybody for giving me this opportunity to talk about this. Thank you.
I'm reading this for my friend, and I'm going to refer to her as Michelle. My husband and I are both disabled. We live on a fixed income through SSI. We've put our names on the Section 8 housing list in 2008 and have yet to receive our vouchers. They say the waiting list is about 10 years or more. So in the meantime, he and I have had to pay close to 3/4 of our income on rent, leaving us with only a small amount for food. Some months we run out of money for food and eat very little for that last week. We barely ever go out and do anything because we don't have extra money to do that. And although it hurts to pay rent, we've paid rent faithfully every month. But despite paying every month, our last landlord harassed us, showed up unexpectedly and telling us what we needed to do to keep up the place. He never put in smoke alarms. He convinced our next door neighbor to harass us, which he did. He'd bang on the walls all night so we couldn't sleep and would attack our therapy dog. Eventually, the landlord gave us notice to leave, despite us paying rent. After having to leave, my husband and I stayed in various motels, but the prices were so outrageous that we had nothing left over for food or essentials. So we've had to move in with my sister in Orange County, having to leave the city we love just to have a roof over our head. We would like to come back and live in San Diego, but the rents are just too high. I hope we can change this.
There will be no love that's dying here. The bird that flew in through my window simply lost his way. He broke his wing, I helped him heal and then he flew away. Well, the death of love is everywhere, but I won't let it be. There will be no love dying here for me. There will be no love that's dying here. The rain that fell down from the wall was better than that song. Rest upon a rusty memory, for it made its fall. Where the roads of love are everywhere, but I won't let it be. There will be no love dying here for me. There will be no love that's dying here. Flowers in my ancient faces, not a sign we're dead. I paid for freedom, sweet old lady, gave me for instead. Well, about the town, about this love, but I won't let it be. There will be no love dying here for me.
All right, everybody sing with me. There will be no love dying here.
There will be no love dying here. There will be no love dying here. There will be no love dying here.
All of our speakers today, we had a really, really valuable, powerful morning here together. So we thank all of our speakers, everybody who helped prepare for it. And I'm going to have our fearless leader, Ann, wrap up for us.
Okay, this has been an incredibly inspiring event, and the solution to the problems we face are in this room. So this is a call to action. This is only the beginning, okay? It's up to us. We hope that everyone signed up on the sign-up sheet will come to HEMA meetings and help us organize, because we have a lot of work to do. We're going to be protesting, we're going to be rallying, we're going to be petitioning City Council, we're going to be making a stink to fight for the right to housing. Are you with me? We want housing, and we want housing now. I also hope that everyone's got an opportunity to sign the petitions. Two big issues in this city. One is rent control. We need it now. We 10 years ago. So sign that petition, and then the second petition is to stop the harassment and criminalization of people who are homeless.
You got your orders.